time for the audience to rebuild. I don't know what was going on with that, but it happens every once in a while. And I kind of had a feeling that was going to happen. So I updated the titles that get used when you just go live unscheduled so it wouldn't say Pork Fest again. So I'm going to give this a few minutes. I'm just going to yippity yap while this is building the audience again. And again, remember, this is participatory. As you can tell from the last comments, if you were in the stream, as long as things don't get abusive, I even allow, I allow critics and people who disagree. Always have. I'm going to give it a few minutes first, just so you know, because sometimes people need to refind the it was just YouTube. Facebook side was fine. Oh, that's weird. That is really, really strange. Well, I'm going to get started talking again. Okay, so we're back on the screen. Yeah, we're back on the screen. I was checking something out on the stream side. It is coming to Facebook too, at least it should be. Okay, so back to... Oh, did I miss it? Okay, right here. Okay, so that's what I know so far. So I'm trying to scoot closer. My eyes are bad. And I want to read this last sentence here. So it says, this promotion and public defense of Dawson by Smith. Well, the promotion allegedly is having him on a show. We don't cancel people for having people on a show that we don't necessarily agree with. The public defense is allegedly of whether he was talking about Zionists or all Jewish people. If that's what Joshua Smith believes he is saying, he has every right to say that. Show me where Joshua Smith said something anti-Semitic and I'll be interested in it. If this person, who is a private person as far as I know, called Jewish people parasites and posted a picture of industrial poison of some sort, that is absolutely and utterly disgusting. No problem in saying that. Okay. So let's look at the rest of this. Susan asked that the email communication be removed, and that was my first instinct. And then she withdrew her request, and I actually agree with her there too. Hey, Julian, are you on Facebook? Because if you are, I need to send you a message. I thought we were friends on Facebook. Shoot me a message if you can. So, oh crap. Alrighty. Okay. Well, so Susan withdrew her request, and I agreed with her. She had my first instinct, and then I also had her second instinct. Deleting lists, deleting emails from the list is just bad. Okay, and Joshua put the name up. Okay. So then Joshua talked about unsubstantiated claims. And here's the second problem I had. David Valenti then says, at work, Joshua, patience, grasshopper. You just slandered this man, David. And now you're I don't know. That just really rubbed me the wrong way. And I could be completely off base in that. But I thought that was completely inappropriate to be, you're forwarding an email that says the most vile things, and then the person's asking for proof that your target actually believes those things, and then you say, patience, grasshopper? Perhaps you shouldn't have forwarded this then when you were at work, David. Perhaps you should have waited till you had time. This is a very serious topic. Okay. And then there's a lengthy thing about Mr. Dawson. And David says he's comfortable with the contents of the email. Leave it to the board if they feel it's actionable. I'm sorry, you don't get away with that. This is just completely explosive public insinuations that can have real world implications. You don't just forward something like this. And I'm wondering, David, this is my business, but not my business. So, Julian, if you have my phone number, you can text me, but I don't know if it's okay with your parents for me to have your number. And that's perfectly cool if it's not. You can't just say, well, I just forwarded this, and I leave it up to everybody else. I just found this completely inappropriate. But what my question was, that is my business and kind of not my business, is as an alternate, Mr. Valente, did you clear this with Susan on sending this over? Because, yeah, you did, Francis. I don't want you contacting me. What does that have to do with Julian? Julian's a friend. You did get told to lose my number. Yeah, if that happened in a meeting, Valente's email would violate decorum. So, and I agree with Libertarian Revolution. The important thing is, where does Josh Smith stand on the issues? And that is exactly it. But I want to know if I were Region 1 representative again, and my alternate did this, I'd be very, very upset. When you're an alternate, to me, not everyone feels this way, you shouldn't be blindsiding your representative. And my other question is, do the Region 5 chairs agree with this? It's their business, ultimately, not mine. We had somebody, I believe it was Ryan, actually, and I know it was somewhat tongue-in-cheek, where you had said about removing David, since he's pushing to remove he's looking to remove Joshua. Just so you know, Ryan, region representatives can only be removed by the region. They cannot be removed by the LNC. So that would never happen. Yeah. But I just think this is completely inappropriate. And I see that David, in this email exchange, seemed to indicate that he had reviewed Mr. Smith's video, but Mr. Smith pointed out where on Facebook David had also said something about something very painful he'd like to do to his anatomy before he would watch a Joshua Smith video. So I don't know whether he's watched it or not. Just because you say something like that on Facebook, people say all kinds of stuff on Facebook. It doesn't mean he didn't watch it. He certainly wanted his audience to believe he didn't watch it, but whatever, So this is, we're turning into the Gestapo, where we're monitoring people's personal lives. Now, if Joshua said something that was explicitly aggressive advocating aggression for social or political means, or criminally aggressive towards another person's rights, even if he did that in his private life, that would be something for the LNC to look at. But absent that, we have a convention every 2 years, and that's what the convention is for. And I had said this is completely improper on Mr. Valenti's part. Okay. Next one. Okay, no, we're going to do that one last. Because of this, Ms. Epke had forwarded to the list a policy that would prohibit forwarding. So it's to add something. Add something. Posting of contact emails from membership. Individual members of the LNC shall not forward to the business list any contact form emails sent to LNC members. If a verified member has requested posting to the business list, it shall be done only under the signature of at least 6 members of the LNC. This is just too much. This is just too much rules. Way too much rules. And right as the stream went down, I was sent a super chat, and I didn't get to see who that was. I apologize. So I thank you. I'm sorry I can't name you by name. Right as I glanced over at the chat, I saw it, and then the stream went down. And when the stream went down, the comments went down. That's another reason why I was looking over at the YouTube video. I wanted to see if the live comments replayed, because I wanted to thank that person. So I'm so sorry. Now, my problem with this is there are concerns that members, the LNC represents the members, not each other. I serve the membership, not other members of the LNC. A lot of time, we would hope that those two things are the same, but they're not. And if a LNC member got a message from a member that they requested to forward to the list that the LNC member felt in their judgment was important enough to keep in its entirety and send to the list, we should have the freedom to do that. To be able to repeat, to say, no, you can't do that, I think impinges upon the fiduciary duty of LNC members. I don't think this policy manual is enforceable. I don't think something that requires an LNC member to potentially have to violate their fiduciary duty is enforceable. And I think there are certain LNC members who if they got an email that they really felt was something that had to be forwarded, would just do it. I'm one of them. If I got an email that I thought was absolutely my fiduciary duty to forward to the list, even with this policy, I would do it and take the consequences. Now, does that happen often? No. How often does it happen that you get an email that you really feel you have a fiduciary duty to forward? I think maybe that's happened once in the 6 years I've been on the LNC. So you're not talking about something common. But it happens. And I don't think we can prohibit this. And I think every time we create a rule that's only about one specific situation that was really bad, that's the way the government does things, not the way we should be doing things. So I will be opposing this. I did say in the list, though, okay, let's go through the responses. Mr. Longstress said he'd support, but he wants more discussion. I said I wouldn't support. While I'm completely opposed to the actions of Mr. Valenti, this is a bludgeon approach. Board members are elected to use their judgment in forwarding concerns. This proposal's too much, And it seems lately we're spending far too much time worrying about how to control each other rather than the state, which is trying and succeeding at controlling everybody. Ms. Hogarth agreed with my, she and I seem to be on the same wavelength today. Now, I don't agree with splitting off into a separate list. There's multiple reasons for not agreeing on that, but that's not really the topic today. If it comes back up again, I'll address that again. I have done that on a different show. And thank you, Jacob. I super appreciate it. Super, super appreciate it. And then I said, not everything can be or should be codified, particularly if we are modeling libertarian governance. Board members must be free to bring things here. They must, however, realize that a mere request does not obligate them to, and once forwarded here, they bear the responsibility. I believe what Mr. Valente did was slanderous, but cutting off everyone due to that is unjust. And thank you, First Last. Yay! Oh, you guys are making my day. And Ken said he will support. And I understand Ken's rationale. I'm going to read it out loud because I thought that he laid out the best argument, but I still disagree. But I do want to recognize the strength of his argument. He says the LNC business list is for the LNC to conduct business, motions and discussions around those motions. I disagree with him that that's all business is. Business is also addressing concerns of members and bringing to light things that need to be brought to light. I would contend that it's not meant to be a sounding board for every member of the party. I don't think anyone is suggesting that. I even said that we need to be selective about what we forward. We have multiple other avenues for members to sound off, which are more conducive to facilitate real-time communication and debate amongst the broader membership. It doesn't have the audience that the LNC list does. You want to know what this reminds me of, and I'm not trying to insult Ken here, is when I took the state of Colorado to court for the right to show my ballot selfie, and they go, well, you can express your political opinion in other ways. Yeah, but I want to express it in this way because this is the most effective. This list is the official communication channel. Those other are not. They're not the same thing, Ken. I don't think you can say, well, you know, they could always hire a skywriter. You know, I know that's not what he said, but I mean, I'm being facetious. This is the official list. And not only do other party members read this, but Reason Magazine reads it. Like, this is where the news about the party, the official goings on, happens. To say they can do it in Slack? No. This is the central official place. This doesn't limit the ability of an individual member of this board from bringing forward a motion for consideration prompted by member feedback, using their own voice and attaching their own name to it. Nobody, to me, bringing up motions and all that is just a red herring. This isn't about motions, and I don't think the LNC list is only about motions. If so, 90% of the conversations the LNC has is illegitimate. But I do believe if you're going to just uncritically forward something, you are attaching your name to it. And David Valente said he endorsed the contents of that, pretty much, that email. To just forward something with no commentary, you are attaching your name to it. Now, sometimes you could forward something and add lots of commentary that says where you agree, where you disagree, why you think this is important. I'm going to make my buddies here at the Libertarian Party Cathedral Caucus, my buddies, you can see how upset it gets them whenever you guys do a super chat. So he says it's very sad watching the grift. Well, I'm enjoying my grift, the Libertarian Party Cathedral Caucus. I know you don't like capitalists very much, so. Too bad. So sad. I'm cry me a river. So, make all the right people upset. Grift me, baby. I'm working that pole. Grift me, baby. I want to put a stripper pole up in here. So whenever I got bozos like this saying stupid shit like that, I could just work the pole. Shake my money maker. Oh my God. Yes, I am enjoying the grift. Libertarian Party Cathedral Caucus. You want to know what? I want to ask something here. Are you enjoying bringing up something, like, for some reason, I want to tell the Dee Dee story here, because this is what's funny. Oh, I should have brought my book. It's a form of doxing, in a way. In my past, I used to be married to a police officer. You all can feel very sorry for me right now. And he was very, very controlling. If you haven't watched the video that I did on this before, he told me who I could be friends with. He told me what I could say, what I could wear. He thinks it's a slight, but it's not. What he's doing is he's bringing up a pseudonym I used to use in my past as if it's something I'm trying to hide. But the fact is, what he's doing is bringing up something that is attached to me being in an abusive marriage for 20 years. So I hope he's really proud of himself that he thinks bullying a woman by bringing up things that had to do with the fact of a marriage that, you know, I'm lucky to have gotten out of is, you know, is something really to be proud of. And you're here talking about Joshua Smith. Meanwhile, you're borderline doxing something from my past, okay? Of a name that I was forced to use by a super controlling husband because he didn't want my personal identity online. I hope you are really just fapping over this, that you're getting your rocks off thinking that you are doing something to try to terrorize somebody about their past. I've talked about this multiple times on multiple shows, that I had to use a pen name because of a super controlling husband. And it is the only way that I was able to get online. So I hope you're having a good time. But now that Julian, now that we let him have his fun, and borderline docs, that's one of the things we don't allow in this chat. You can keep calling me a grifter because I think that's funny. But if you're going to try to borderline dox me by using an abusive past, Julian, please remove him the next time that happens. He can criticize me all he wants. We do not allow doxing here. And trying to use somebody's past that has to do with abuse as a way to intimidate them. We're not allowing that here. You don't get to pry into my past personal life. Call me a grifter. Pretty much almost anything else here you could say is pretty fair game. But you try that again, you're banned from the channel. Thank you for your service and coming to my TED Talk. And then I said to Mr. Molman, I respect that view, Mr. Molman, and that's why I wanted your contact information, Julian. I was just going to shoot that over to you, but since he kept doing it, I just decided to address it publicly. But in case in the future there's somebody who's misbehaving, that's why I wanted your contact information, just so I could alert you. And other people who are here regularly, I'd like to make a couple more channel mods. If you're here regularly, please get in touch with me. People generally are well behaved, though. Even the people I have that are my continual critics, like John Waldenberg, it's funny. Is that Waldenberger, do you think, Miss Prepper? Because I was just going to give John Waldenberger a compliment. John Waldenberger comes into my channel a lot under his name and criticizes the hell out of me, but never crosses the line. And he's allowed in. Because this is the channel where I can interact with people in real time. I don't think I've ever removed anybody, but no doxing and no bringing up people's abusive past. You do it to me, you could do it to somebody else. Not having it. So I'm going to be opposing this motion to prohibit forwards. Doxing isn't only things that when you use publicly, when I started using that name, it wasn't attached to me. It became attached to me against my will by somebody that actually has an FBI report filed against them because they were threatening me. So what you are using is information by somebody that, was sending me threatening messages to the point where I wasn't allowed to receive male callers at my job anymore. There was a picture of this guy posted at the front of my office in case he ever came in. He used to just send me super disturbing things, and the FBI actually had to get involved. So that's what you're doing with all of that. And I've told you it's unwelcome. And when people tell you certain things you're dragging up, that's their personal life from the past, is unwelcome, you should respect that. But do what you want. I don't really care. But not in my channel. It doesn't have to be in my presence. Okay. So I think this will pass, though, however. I think this will pass. I actually don't think this is Waldenberger. Waldenberger is much more, he's different. He behaves differently. Well, thank you for your acknowledgement, LPCC. Okay. Now, this is the one that Mike Seebeck had, texted me about. So, Madam Chair and Madam Secretary, at the September 4th through 5th meeting of the LNC in Kentucky, I will be the Region 4 representative. Supervisor Hewitt will not be attending in person. I ask that an executive session be added to the agenda at a time that makes the most sense, preferably combined with another executive session or combined with a break. The executive session will include all members of the LNC board and staff with the exception of Secretary Harlos, who will be asked to leave. The topic under discussion, security and civility of conventions and meetings, may have legal and contractual implications and therefore qualifies for executive session. We may need to also include legal counsel and members of past and present convention oversight committees and past LNC members. However, it's my intent to start with just the current board and staff. I suspect this will be no more than a 20-minute discussion. I'm unclear. Okay, and the rest is just he wasn't sure how to make a request because I started an agenda request form, which a bunch of people decided to make a big deal out of for no good reason. So do what you want. I don't care. I was just trying to help the chair, but no good deed goes unpunished. I'm not going to argue about that stupid agenda request form. It was just silly. Absolutely silly. So, Joshua asks, why do you think it's okay to ask an officer of this board to leave the executive session? Fair question. Now, I'm going to need to explain a lot of background context here to show why this was completely inappropriate. First thing, I find it quite discourteous to make such a request after I said I was unavailable. For those of you who don't know, yesterday on the LNC list, I posted that I would be completely unavailable for the next 2 days because I didn't expect to be back till tomorrow. To post something about somebody when you know they can't respond right away. Now, I'm not saying he did this on purpose, but it's not a good look, okay? Further, this is an entirely improper request. A board member's right to be at meetings is like their right to vote. Inalienable, absent, I was typing with no glasses. I meant express policy. I don't know, or chorus policy. Express policy from the bylaws. Such as a board member can't vote on their own suspension motion. They're allowed to exclude that vote because our bylaws say that. I further find this frankly abusive as a response to me bringing up a concern, and I'm going to explain this sentence, and as such in violation of our policy and retaliatory. Then I ask, is this how women who report intimidation at conventions are treated? This is a terrible look. I will not be leaving any meeting. And then, JJ, here's where you enter the story. I just got off the phone with my parliamentarian and may likely be submitting a written opinion to the chair. This is completely inappropriate and illegal parliamentary-wise. There is only one way an officer can be excluded from a meeting, and that is for disruption at that meeting. The delegates elected me to have and exercise certain rights. I intend on doing so. And we're going to go through this whole thing, and then I'm going to give some of the background. Ken, I'm pretty sure a board cannot remove a voting member of that board from a meeting. Correct. And then TJ allegedly clarifies. I'm not going to doubt what he says. I'm just giving why this is wrong. Madam Chair, it's not Ms. Harlow's position as secretary which is being excluded, rather her position as the victim in this scenario. Sadly, we cannot separate the two. I made this request based on the secretary's feedback and guidance in previous email chains. Okay, this is a big problem right here. And trying to find a path forward to resolve the matter. If you or others have a better path, I'm open to suggestions. As I see it, the board should take allegations seriously and have an executive session to discuss such allegations outside the presence of the victim to decide how to handle the matter. What are the guidelines for when the victim is on the board? From what I could tell, it would be prudent to ask that person to excuse themselves from that discussion. How else can we protect the victim while also being free to discuss details in a way that could be painful to the victim? I believe having the victim present is a risk. However, I'm open to suggestions. I said, I will not be excluded from any meeting. Blindsiding me publicly with such a request is not the way to treat a victim either. And that's the succinct way of what's wrong with this whole thing. And I will continue. I will also note, not that it matters ultimately, except to show that this request was very carelessly worded. And then I quote the request. The executive session will include all members of the LNC board and staff with the exception of Secretary Harlows. My position was asked to leave. If your intent was to try to not make this about my position, it was a bad attempt. However, all of this is irrelevant ultimately. I will not leave. And I find the way this was handled very, very problematic by Mr. Fiera and caused me to be the subject of public ridicule and speculation. Okay, let's go to some background information here. I'd been talking for 5 years about an assault that happened to me at the 2016 convention. I did a whole video on this. You can go back. I'll probably put it up in the show notes here, called The LP Needs to Hear a Who. I give all the details. But I caution that some words, grift me harder, baby. Just grift me harder. Cathedral, you're good for business. Will you please come to all of my shows? So there's some words we hear, and they have a wide variety of meaning. And I want people to understand there's a difference between assault and battery. It was borderline battery as well, but assault, people think assault means battery. Assault is actually intimidating actions and words. There's no physical contact in an assault. But most people hear the word assault and they think you got dragged behind a woodshed and beat over the head. So when I say I was assaulted, I'm not saying I was beaten up. I was saying I was physically intimidated through words and actions. Now, there was some physical contact. Borderline battery, because I'm not so sure the physical contact that was had with me by the perpetrator was intentional. But in the context of assault, the law probably doesn't care, but I'm just being very open here. Because I don't want people to make this more than what it was. Now, it was bad, but other people had things much worse. So I want to make that clear, that I'm not saying that somebody dragged me outside a convention and beat the living shit out of me. I'll briefly describe here what happened, but you can go back to that video to hear the whole story. I was conventioneering for Daryl Perry and walking around holding his sign. So that, and Francis, your question is really interesting because it is a form of victim blaming. Like, you're asking me what I did. I don't have to do anything, but I'll tell you what I did. But I would sincerely ask that when somebody is telling you a story of something that was potentially a violation of libertarian principles, you don't ask them what they did. It's like asking, what were you wearing? But I'll tell you what I did. So I was walking around carrying a Daryl Perry sign. And if all of you had been in the convention hall, you know how people were walking around. It was crazy. Well, this guy, I don't know who he was. He was, I could tell you exactly where he was sitting, but that doesn't mean that was the delegation he was sitting with. So I was on the right-hand side of the convention hall. Colorado was right in front. Tennessee, then there was this like racetrack, and Tennessee was right in front of us. And he was sitting in the Tennessee row. I don't know if he was part of the Tennessee delegation. I didn't see him until the time of the presidential, hoopla. And he had a Gary Johnson sign. Big guy. And didn't apparently like that I was campaigning for Daryl Perry, and started following me around super close, like right in your personal space, and like coming, like you could feel the physical intimidation, to the point where I started slowing down and people heard me. I started, just because I get really calm when I think I'm in danger, and I started saying, "You're making me very, very uncomfortable. Will you please get out of my personal space?" And I'm walking, just saying this. "You're making me very, very uncomfortable. Please get out of my personal space." And everyone's hearing this. And nobody's doing a thing. But okay. So I go around multiple times like this, thinking somebody's going to intervene. And he's getting closer. Like, it's getting more intense. So I end up right in front of Colorado again, hoping my husband would be there, but he wasn't. But there is a witness there, by the way, who is more than willing to talk to the LNC. And this guy's getting so much in my space, I feel like I can't get away from him. So what I did, I scrambled up onto a chair to get away from this guy. So there is a chair right in front. I climb up on the chair to get away from the guy. And he comes and stands like right, like his back, like, I'm standing on the chair. He comes right here. And I think he was forward part of the time too, but then turned, because like that would put you in a very like awkward, body part. And held his sign up and stuck it right in my face. And that's where contact was made, but I don't think he contacted me on purpose. But he did. Not hard. He did slap me in the face. Slapped even, probably too. His sign made contact with my face. Now, sitting in the Colorado delegation, those of you who've been around the party a long time will know this person, Jeff Orrick. Very well-respected member of the party, who's sitting here watching this. Jeff Orrick is not a big brawny guy like this guy. And Jeff Orrick talked to me afterwards, that he saw this going down, and he said, "I'm thinking to myself," this is Jeff Orrick, tell me he was thinking, "Oh my God, what is happening right in front of me? Am I going to have to fly over the table at this guy and get murdered?" And then I don't know what else. Melody, you just don't know the law. That's not true. I'm a paralegal. Assault is the physical intimidation. Battery is the contact. And then everything just dissipates. And Jeff Orrick came at me later, and he's like, "Woof." He's like, "I thought I was going to have to intervene here." So what did I do? I went over, because he was carrying a Gary Johnson sign, to Gary Johnson's floor team, who were the only people there that were like of any kind of official, because I was brand new in the party in 2016. I didn't know anybody. And so I went to them and reported it. And they said, nothing we can do. Not one of ours. He's carrying one of our signs, but not one of ours. No, maybe you should talk to the hotel. I just felt really stupid over the whole thing. And I didn't want to be the bummer of the convention. And then I also started talking about it on Facebook. And LNC staff, or LPHQ staff, started helping me try to identify the person, because the whole convention was filmed. Well, the person who was filming it for the party ran off with the tapes, because I could have pointed him out very easily. LPHQ staff let me see all the pictures that were taken. The intent to intimidate. And there definitely was an intent to intimidate me, Elastic Giraffe. And with me saying I felt threatened, please step away, and then them getting closer, it's definitely assault. And I looked through all the pictures and couldn't find them. And I reported it to Melody. I reported it to the staff. If you don't like what I did, disbelieve me. I don't care. And there's nothing to investigate. Really, it's an LP thing. It's the LP needs to make sure that they are watching the floor. So what do I want done? I want the LP to have better convention security, where they have people monitoring the floor to look for potentially explosive situations, and have clearly marked procedures for people to report political intimidation that happens. Because nobody really knew what to do. I don't think the Gary Johnson staff I just don't think they knew what to do. So we need to have people who are visible on the floor that can be the ones you go to, because in the future it could be more serious. So that's all I've been asking for, and I think that's just good practice, particularly at a presidential convention, because that's when these sorts of things can happen, when everyone's crowding around with the signs and stuff. So that is what I want to happen, and I'd like to see a procedure for that. At any state convention, there's usually a clearly identified, I know in Colorado, we have a clearly identified sergeant at arms, and tell the members, if you see a situation which is inappropriate, please go let the sergeant at arms know. And I guess, on a grander scale, we need clearly marked sergeant at arms, just so that if anyone else is in that situation in the future, it can be handled. That's it. That's all I want. And I think that's good institutional practice. Now, it leads to some other situations that have gone on, not with me, but that have been reported from other, it happens to be female members of the party, but men can find themselves in situations which are inappropriate. There needs to be some kind of broader policy. I don't know how that would be handled. It probably would be on a state-by-state basis, and it would be different. But it's definitely something that awareness needs to be come to, particularly at political conventions. Intimidation is something that's not unheard of. So now that I went back to explain what actually happened, the LNC up until now has never officially recognized that this happened. Staff has. The LNC never has. And it's not really this LNC's responsibility because we're going back to 2016. It is, but it isn't. You know, they weren't the ones primarily responsible. That was the 2016 to 2018 thing. But if it keeps being brought up, it is up to the LNC to address it, recognize that it happened, and decide if it needs better protocol in place. So I've been bringing it up for 5 years. Just now, they finally decided to address it. It was addressed at first on the secret list. And, right, this term, Francis, you were one of the people who asked to address it. Francis was one of the people that asked to address it. Tim Hagen was as well. And this conversation had continued after Francis resigned. But Francis absolutely is one of the ones who was one of the first people to step up to want to address it. In the private discussions that had went on, I had said to Mr. Vieira some of the things I'm saying to some of the people here in chat. If you think some of the questions that some of the people here in chat are asking me are not really the way you should be handling a situation, I had the same objections with the way Mr. Vieira was talking to me in private. Those of you who have no problem with these kinds of questions, then you would have had no problem with Mr. Vieira did. But I had told Mr. Vieira that I felt he was victim blaming, and I wasn't at all comfortable with the tone he was taking with me. And I said, I understand you're trying to get to the bottom of this, which is admirable because you're an LNC member. But I am not going to discuss this with you over email any further. I welcome the opportunity to talk to the full LNC in executive session at an official meeting, and then I will gladly answer any questions that you have. So that's the backdrop to this. So when he says, I made this request based on the secretary's feedback and guidance, my feedback was I wanted to give my testimony to the entire LNC. How is having a meeting in which they don't hear from me at all based upon my guidance? How is that at all fair? When I said to the LNC, I'm not discussing this anymore on email. I don't like the tone. Email tone sometimes can be really deceptive. I said I would welcome the opportunity to discuss this with you at a meeting. He called, and then TJ says to me, I'll be requesting agenda time. And I said, great. Then he requests agenda time and tries to exclude me? That's not appropriate. That is not at all appropriate. And I'm also on the convention committee. I'm an ex officio member, but I am policy manual part member, so there's 2 ways I'm being excluded. Now, I can accept that TJ just wasn't thinking. I have a lot of problems with this email, but I'm not going to impute any kind of malice to it. But there wasn't a lot of thought here. And it is just really problematic to me that you say that you requested this in order to treat properly somebody's complaints of physical intimidation because you don't want to hurt their feels or whatever it was, but you don't even tell me privately first that you're going to do this. You just publicly blindside me with this. And the initial email doesn't say anything at all for the reason for my exclusion, which leads people who are reading this to fill in the blanks, which is what they did. You want to know what people thought this was about? They thought it was about me behaving improperly at a convention. Of course they would. I would think that without any context here, wouldn't you? With everything else that had been going on and all the accusations? And then you say, Secretary Harlos? With no explanation at all? You're trying to exclude an officer? This was entirely and absolutely inappropriate. Now, I appreciate that he says he's worried that something might be said that'd bother me. I'll pull up my big girl knickers. It is inappropriate to exclude me. Now, let me explain here, which is before TJ gave his additional explanation. Where I said, I find this frankly abusive in response to me bringing up a concern. It would be difficult for outsiders to understand the context of my statement without knowing that he and I had private conversations where I told him, where I cut off discussing it anymore with him and told him further emails from you are unwelcome on this topic. So him then going to publicly call for a meeting and exclude me, I found it retaliatory and abusive. That because of what happened before. I brought up a concern, and the response is, well, we're going to talk about it now without you. And that just isn't right. And in that private discussion, mixed all in with my concerns about the 2016 assault, I got chastised for, in the suspension motion, for saying, and this is completely inappropriate to chastise me for this, for saying somehow I was wrong to say that if I had a hearing, a suspension hearing, that I would have an attorney present. That is my right. You don't chastise someone for saying they would have an attorney present. And also for asking how much this was costing the party in for the parliamentary opinions that Mr. Molman had to receive. Since I thought it was a frivolous retaliation against a whistleblower, it's perfectly appropriate to ask that there was what the cost was. And for that to be brought up in the context of me complaining about the 2016 assault just was really weird. And that's why I felt like the whole thing was retaliatory, that it's all tied into this New Hampshire thing. Now, whatever happens with this, I completely accept Mr. Fiera's, Mr. Fiera's explanation. You know, I'm not going to doubt his intentions or what he said, but it's just a very bad look. Because a good deal of the party already feels like the LNC was retaliating against a whistleblower in the suspension motion. And now it looks like they're retaliating against somebody who complained against a physical intimidation. That's the look. And it's a really bad look. So I'm going to go check out the chat here in a moment. So whatever happens, I'll be at this meeting. Oh, there's another context. So when I cut off the email discussion in private, I had said, for good reasons, guys, I've got trust issues with the LNC right now. Serious trust issues. So that's the way that email exchange ended, where I said, I'm having a hard time trusting you guys. Then you turn around and try to exclude me from a meeting? How is that building trust? Yes, JJ, there were people speculating on Facebook that I did something wrong. And I've cleared it up. Posts have been deleted. But there was some public ridicule going on. You don't do this like this. Now, again, I'm not going to read any malice on Mr. Fierra's part. I think sometimes we libertarians aren't the best at social niceties, and I'm going to chalk it up to that. What was it? Fiscally conservative and socially awkward. But this isn't the way to handle. So those are the 3 situations going on right now. To summarize, and then I'll go to comments. The Joshua Smith situation. I don't care who he had on his show. We need to stop minding the the business of the personal lives of fellow LNC members. Who he has on a show is his own damn business. I am not buying into the cancel culture anymore that you can't have bad people. You can't talk to bad people. If you don't, a lot of formerly bad people, good people now, used to be bad people. There's a great show on YouTube. I'm going to try to describe it for you so you can watch it. I was crying watching this thing. There's this guy who said he used to be a neo-Nazi and how he left that movement. And then there's a parallel video with this black guy who said why I attended KKK rallies. That black guy helped bring that white guy out of the neo-Nazi movement. We have to talk to people. Not everyone is hopeless. And thank you, Mr. Green. I'll get some more due. Enjoying that grift, baby. I gotta come up with something. I've got to come up with something to like, I need a grift bell or something. Ding, 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 ding. More grift, please. So, who Joshua had on his show is his business. If Joshua is giving some anti-Semite too big of a benefit of the doubt, that's Joshua's business. Sorry, it's Joshua's business. I've been known to give people a lot of benefit of the doubt when I shouldn't. If a crime is being overly charitable, that's a crime I wish more people would commit. But show me where Joshua actually believes these things that are in opposition to the non-aggression principle, or advocating the use of force for social or political goals, or advocating violence against people. Then the LNC gets concerned. Otherwise, you're just a little gossip monger. Pitter patter, let's get at her, running with your little gossip. Gossiping to the LNC is a bitch move. It is such a whiny bitch move. You got plenty of Facebook groups to go gossip. Francis, if you have a complaint to make to the LNC, make a complaint to the LNC. I know what you're referring to. There's a he said, she said situation there. If you think, but that is in fact something, though, that would be something valid for people to bring up to the LNC, if that's what you are asking, Francis. Whether or not they would want to get involved is their own business. But that would be actually valid. not who people are having on their show, not counting how many times I say fuck on a live stream. Um, yeah. So yeah, I think that's where we're at. Whether you're a member of the LP or the public, this all the same. Okay, let me try to go back through some comments here. Okay, let's see here. I think I went through everything here. Oh, I love this. Daniel 3 said, "Don't criticize me if the other person did a bad thing too." Yeah. The yeah but. The yeah but. And I'm just continuing here. Yeah, and I agree with Libertarian Revolution here. If one engages in political outreach and slash or interviewing people, one could talk to people with all kinds of views. Just because you talk to someone doesn't mean you agree with them. Absolutely agree. Now, me, listen, while I encourage these discussions, I have a hard time talking with people who have abhorrent views. That's not my talent. And I've made my views on those sorts of things pretty well known. I find all forms of racism and collective deprecation, I guess is the way it would be said, just absolutely fucking disgusting. And I have a hard time talking with those people. But you want to know what? Somebody might talk to them and bring them out of that. For those of us who are Christians, I mean, hell, of course, now that was a Damascus Road experience. We're not going to have that. But look who ended up being one of the biggest purveyors of the Christian faith was the Apostle Paul. Meanwhile, Apostle, it says in Acts that when Stephen was being stoned, they laid Stephen's clothes at Saul's feet, and Saul was consenting to his death. Of all people that should never have been trusted ever or talked to, wouldn't it have been Saul? Ryan, this is a good point. This policy would have prevented some pro-LPNH emails from going forward, I'm sure. This would suppress minority opinion. It would also suppress whistleblowing. The LNC member has to have the wisdom. Just because someone asks for something to be forwarded doesn't mean it has to be. And David did eventually own that content. So now, do I want something to be done to David for his bad, what I consider very bad behavior in doing this? No. It's never, that's not my style. It's not, we said our opinion. Okay, let's see here. I love the stripper pole. Oh, I'm telling you, I want to get a stripper pole in here so bad. I didn't see that comment, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, And Elastic Giraffe noted that the other person who uses, the past pen name is Carol Moore, because Carol Moore is very obsessed with the fact that I wrote a lot of things under that name, because that was the period of my life when I was very fundamentalist Christian. So there is a lot written under that that pen name. And I think Carol thinks I wrote it under that pen name to hide that those were my views, which is so weird because I openly admit those were my views. I used to have some terrible views. Speaking of terrible people, not like any of this, but I used to be very, very anti-gay. That was part of my fundamentalist past, and I absolutely repent of that. But that is when you were in that kind of religion, that's kind of what everybody thought. I've been pretty open about that. I think for some reason Carol thinks I'm trying to hide that, and I absolutely am not. I talk about my fundamentalist past a lot. Let's see here. I want to put up JJ's comment here. If Ms. Harlow finds this issue too painful, she may choose to leave voluntarily. I doubt she will. Correct. And if I couldn't handle it and got belligerent or out of control, then they could legitimately remove me. But JJ and I have had this discussion, and I'm not so sure how many people notice this, but I'm going to ask you just to think back. I never misbehave in meetings, or what people might think is misbehaving. Time and place. Time and place. You will not find me anything during opening gavel to closing gavel, anything but respectful for the situation in meetings. I've never screamed at anybody. I've never cussed. Other LNC members have. I'm very, very, very careful in meetings, which is another thing why that initial email was so disturbing to me, because it was like, civility in conventions and meetings? Listen, there might be some people who have some issues with some things I've said on the email list, though all the examples that have been brought forth are not violations. It's been stuff I've said on social media. You're not going to find an example of actionable incivility at a meeting perpetrated by me ever. Very, very careful, and I'm very, very respectful of the process of the meeting. Okay. I want to address something Libertarian Party Cathedral Caucus said. They said, Kyle, we are anti-takeover. Were you opposed to what happened in New Hampshire? The takeover of the New Hampshire party by Gilletta Jarvis? I'd love to hear your answer on that, if you're anti-takeover. And you said you're personally a little right of center. On those political spectrum tests, it puts me as right of center, but those tests suck. I really, absolutely, particularly due to my anti-corporation stance, believe I'm left of center. I always describe myself as left of center. Okay. I'm just going to leave that up there, Daniel 3. I'm not even going to say anything. And thank you first, last. And okay, I see LPCC said it's Aaron. Well, hello, Aaron. And that then I appreciate you taking then into consideration what I said earlier. I do appreciate that. Kyle, they're not on the list of caucuses on LPedia because nobody put them there. I invite them to add their name. LPedia is member content driven. If you see something that's not there, put it there. This is, I'm going to do to you what I do to everybody in Colorado. Kyle says, why isn't the LPCC on the list of caucuses on LPedia? And here's what I do. Thank you for volunteering, Kyle. We really appreciate it. Okay, I think I am. All right, I think I got through the comments. We'll be, I'll be signing off in a minute. I like to give a few minutes for when I say I think I got through everything in comments for someone to go, hey, 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 you missed something that I should have addressed. And Ryan says, randomly speaking of LPedia, I added a PDF. Oh, yeah, I saw you did that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you ever want to do more LPedia stuff, we need it. This is an interesting comment. We're against both sides of that. The LNC should have been quicker to act. Well, this LNC member was very quick to act. And you saw what happened to me for it. I was very quick to act. Kyle, yes, we definitely would love to have you on helping out on LPedia. It's reaching, I think, critical mass where there's a lot of stuff, like the amount of stuff that's on there is now at the point of being really useful rather than just very scattered. And I've got all kinds of stuff that's been scanned by Chris Lucchini that we need to get up onto LPedia. I can put 1 million people to work. And when we all get embroiled like in this drama stuff, LPedia can be your happy place. It's very productive. It will bear fruit for the future. And it's not all this drama stuff, you know? And I would appreciate feedback today in dealing with this LNC stuff. I hope everyone noticed that I tried to deal with it pretty factually and give people the benefit of the doubt in these particular emails. So I'd be very curious as to your opinions on that as well. Well, Francis, you will agree or not agree, you are about to be removed. Tucker was about to be removed. And Joe formed a coup. So, yeah. The whistleblower is still here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kyle. And I expect my friends to call me out when I'm not. And there's been some where I've been up in my feels, where I haven't been as much as I want. But in this thing, I'm not all up in my feels. I'm tired, so probably too tired to be. So I thank you guys. Shows coming up have nothing to do with the LNC. I've got a short piece coming up on the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And history and People's Party and all of that kind of stuff. So I appreciate you all. I'm going to be doing the closing thing in a minute, and I hope you all have an awesome night. Bye-bye.
Gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business.